What is going on, you beautiful bastards? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I am Brandon Sylvia. Thank you all for joining me here today to listen to me ramble about what I am playing, what I have been playing. Lately, we have quite the docket today, a lot of games to get through. I feel like I have been saying that a lot lately on these What I'm Playings because there are a lot of games releasing that are catching my eye, that are of interest to me. So, a lot of good stuff to dive into today. Let me know down in the comments below, what have you been playing as of late? Anything good that stood out to you? Make sure to leave me a recommendation in the comments down below. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this thing off. I'm going to try to breeze through this pretty quickly, talk about each game for 4 or 5 minutes or so because we have a lot of games to dive into. Plus, I'm going to be doing my most underrated games of 2022. That should probably be available by the time you're seeing this, and also the little award show, just sitting here giving out some awards, talking about video games, giving some highlights. So I'm going to try not to be redundant, and because we're going to be talking about a lot of these games in other videos this month, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But the first game is probably going to be one of the very few games on this list that doesn't pop up in any of my end of the year highlights and underrated recommendations or anything like that. And that is Somerville. This is coming to us from Dino Patti, who was the, I believe, co-founder of Playdead. And yeah, this is a highly anticipated puzzle-solving adventure game in the ilk of an Inside Limbo. A lot of people were looking forward to this. I know I was highly anticipating it, and it is a colossal just disappointment. Just a disappointment, man. I can't believe how bad this game is, in my opinion at least. If it clicked with you, more power to you, but holy shit, this thing did not click with me at all. I love the premise, the setup, the just thematic structure of what's going on, the alien invasion, the kind of build up with the family and trying to reconnect with your family, and then also the kind of just abstract nature of the story and the subtlety and the environmental storytelling. And like, I really got into a lot of that with Somerville. I get a quick baseline summary is that you're at home one night and your kid is like, you're all taking a nap on the couch. Your kid wakes up, he roaming around, and then you hear this loud like rumble outside your house. So you wake up, you go and find your kid, and then you go outside and you see, oh shit, there's this like large object that fell from space and has landed in my backyard. And so from that point on, you're just kind of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And obviously you're dealing with some otherworldly entities in the process, meeting some different strange characters along the way. I dug that. It's cinematic, much more cinematic than anything, from your Insides or Limbos. And I dug that a lot. I thought those were welcome additions. The gameplay here is so bad. Like, to a point, I can't believe how bad this game plays. I truly can't believe it. They tried to go 3D. Inside Limbo, you're kind of 2D side-scrolling puzzle-solving adventures where it's fairly straightforward. The actual act of solving the puzzle is complicated and difficult, and that's kind of the fun part, but the actual movement of the characters is so intuitive and so sound. And Somerville, whatever, it is not the case, man. These world spaces are way too big. The camera is wonky. It's never positioned right. It's rough. It's rough. And there's certain little mechanics and just little design choices that are so baffling to me. Like, your character can run most of the time, but sometimes like you'll be in a certain section and you need him to run and he doesn't run, and you're like, wait, you were just able to run 2 seconds ago. Why? Like, what story reason or what reason do you have for not being able to run in this moment? And there's just some really obtuse, goofy puzzles that like, you're using this energy that you carry with you, and these little blob orb things follow you, and they try to like you use them in a way to clear paths to get to the next section. And there's like one with this well and a bucket. Those of you who have played the game, you're probably going to know what I'm talking about. It's like the first puzzle that you run up against, and I should have some footage of it. It's the first puzzle that you run up against where you're just like, well, what are you, what is this? Why am I doing this? This is like so unnatural. None of this is like, you get stuck on an Inside or a Limbo, and then you go and watch a little guide on YouTube, and you're like, God dang it, that's right there. I knew, as soon as you see it, you're like, I should have known that. I should have figured that out on my own. With this, I got stuck a few times on Somerville, and when I got stuck, I was like, oh wow. When I found it on YouTube what to do, I was like, I would have never figured that out in my wildest dreams. But the puzzle solving honestly isn't even as like, I mean, it's prominent for sure, but it's not as prominent as like your Insides and Limbos. It's a lot more exploration and navigation is actually the biggest negative for this game for me. The actual just act of moving your character sucks so bad in Somerville that it just, yeah, it totally took me out of the game. And it's, of course, it's not much of a looker visually, but I can, get down with the minimalistic sort of art style. I can get down with the minimal use of music, and when you do use it, it's like ambient and effective, and I like the cinematics. Like I said, there's things that I like about it. It just sucked playing it. Like I hated every moment that I was controlling the character in that game. It is for sure one of my least favorite games. It might be my least favorite game of the year. It really might. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's some things like, obviously your Saints Rows, your Gotham Knights, your Valkyrie Elysiums that pop in my head, but at least I had some fun moving, and like with Saints Row, just riding my little jet ski and fucking off. Like there were moments in those games I had fun. I had no fun controlling the character in Somerville. Liked the story, and that was about it. And then even with that, it's like abstract as shit. Just kind of make up your own sort of, interpret everything for yourself style story, which I'm fine with. But yeah, let's see what this thing's sitting at on Metacritic. Okay, so on Xbox Series X, it is sitting at a 68 on Metacritic with a user score of 4.1. And I'm not a 4.1, but I'm damn sure not a 68. I would have to say maybe 5.3, 5.2 or so. Yeah, probably 5, somewhere between 5.2 and 5.4. I really did not like this game. Oh, and I should have mentioned that is on Game Pass. I played it on Game Pass, as well as this next game that I played on Game Pass that I abso-freaking-lutely loved. Norco. Point and click style, text-based adventure. This Louisiana setting, this serene but psychological thriller, this detective sort of almost true detective, season 1 Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson vibe with the story. I just, the setup is initially so intriguing. You're playing as this girl who is trying to find her lost brother. Her mother just passed away, and her brother, is believed to have kind of gone off the deep end a little bit. So you're off looking for your brother, and you just meet the wildest band of misfits in this game, and they're so well written. It's such, just from moment one, it for me, I sat down, played it for like 3 hours straight the first night, 3 hours straight the second night, and then just ran through it in 2 days. I was just so addicted to being in this game, and then just meeting the different characters and seeing how everything was going to resolve. And it's so cool how little decisions that you make, and just you get like this voice recorder later in the game, and just like the little voice line that you record, you run into a dude and he's super depressed about his kid that's joined this weird ass cult, and then you end up running into the cult and the weird kid, and it's like, if you have that specific voice line recorded, it can have an impact later in the game. And just even silly things like I ran into a dude, a hot dog vendor, and he's selling like these mutilated fucking 10-year-old hot dogs, and but I need him to unlock a door for me, or to give me a specific knock on how to get into a door. And so I have to find somebody to go and buy one of his hot dogs and eat his hot dog, and that's like that's the bargaining chip that he was able to offer me to get me into the place I need to go. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go find you somebody to eat a damn hot dog, I guess. You go and find a dude to eat his hot dog, pay for his hot dog, and this all sounds disgusting, but it's literally you're an actual hot dog here that I'm talking about. Don't have your mind in the gutter here, where we're talking about good old. I was about to say, good old classic American hot dogs, but these are not good old classic American hot dogs. These are the most mutant, fucking, just disgusting 10-year-old hot dogs. And you get this guy to go and eat it, and he. You think nothing of it, you go about your way, and then 3 hours later you run into him outside of like a nightclub, and he's telling you all about this horrible hot dog and how it fucked up his stomach, and he gives you this graphic breakdown of this gnarly shit that he had to take due to eating this just disgusting ass hot dog. And it's like the littlest things like that end up wrapping back around in this story and have like some sort of payoff to where you think that, that's just a throwaway moment in 99% of other games or other stories. But like, to have it all come full circle and run into that guy again. And it's just so cool because it's it's a darker story. It's a lot about loss. It's a lot about, there's mental health aspects that they're diving into for sure. And it's cool to have those moments of levity and humor, and it's a lot of humor with just the writing is so good, and like little jokes land so well. And even just talking about that full circle effect, the first moment of the game for me, I'm roaming around the home area, and I find this little religious like artifact outside, and I'm dabbling with it, and I find like there's more than meets the eye here. And 4 hours later in the game, I find the thing that goes with that, and I'm like, holy shit. That every like 4 hours later, one of the first things I interacted with in this game, it all went full circle. I'm going right back to this religious artifact with this new information that I have, and like it's really, really impressive, man. It's really impressive. It's fun. It's like I said, there's moments of levity. There's moments of real heartache and pain. And yeah, it's it's crazy that everything's kind of about like that full circle of finding something later, and then seeing that full circle story arc. And it's crazy that that's kind of the whole premise of the game in general, of even the theme of the overall plot. And really a beautiful journey. It's simple, it's very simple. There's really no gameplay at all. There's like little sections where you get to kind of fight, point and click style fighting, but it's as simple as humanly possible. There's no real voice acting, the very little use of music, or at least very little use of kind of stand out music. So it's not like it's for sure not $100 million action RPG, narrative based adventure. It's a legit old school point and click style adventure. It's use of subtlety and designing characters that you're engaged with and compelled to see their story arc evolve through the writing. That's all it's relying on throughout the entire game. It's not really relying on anything else, but what it does do, it does so well. And just seeing this kind of crazy story play out and the twists and turns that it takes, and at times becomes this wild ass sci-fi, narrative. It's a really, really good game. Okay, so on Metacritic, it is sitting at an 89 currently, but that's for the PC version. It doesn't have a Series X, I don't believe. Yeah, no, it doesn't have a Series X score just yet. It's got a PC score of 89 though, and I think that's fair for sure. I'm maybe more around like an 8.4, 8.5 ish. Like I don't know about an 8.9, but it is an incredible story. So I'm definitely not mad at an 8.9 by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I'm cool with an 8.9. Oh, and I guess I should mention for anybody who stumbled upon the channel for the first time, I do little like I compare where I'm at with my kind of internal thoughts on a score for the game compared to where it's sitting at on Metacritic. Just kind of a silly little fun way to put a little stamp at the end of the game without getting super serious about the score and saying this is definitively an 8.7 or whatever. Just kind of like little roundabout ways to cap off each segment, cap off each discussion surrounding a game with a little fun game about games kind of thing. I don't know. All right, next up, let's very quickly talk about NBA 2K23. I saw that it had a free trial on Xbox with, I believe, through Game Pass. I could be wrong about that. You can correct me, but it was from like November 18th to the 22nd. So I was like, you know what? Let me check this out, because I'd been wanting to pick it up. I play the 2K games pretty much every year, and I usually buy like the second month it releases. I can go on eBay and grab a copy for $30 pretty easily. And this year has not been the case at all. Like, they're holding their value like it's almost to a point where I haven't seen a decrease at all in price on eBay. And I don't really know what's going on with that. I've seen that a lot with games in general, where they're holding price a lot longer. And so yeah, I'm not gonna buy any of the NBA or pretty much any sports game for full price. Damn sure not for fucking $70. So I saw the little free trial. I was like, cool, I've been wanting to play it. I wanted to play the Jordan Challenge, but my thing is franchise mode. I love franchise mode in sports games, man. I love them. And so I dove in, and to my surprise, they have fully overhauled the franchise mode in 2K, where you can start in the 80s, you can go to the 90s, you can go to the 2000s or the modern era, and you can start like each franchise at the beginning of those decades and play through the full decades with the old school rosters and the old school jerseys and old school courts and salary caps and the 80s presentation with the grainy cameras and it's fucking mesmerizing, the amount of work that they put into a franchise mode, a mode that does not, milk their pockets. Of course, it's the old school fans, the older players. They are definitely going to be the people who constantly go to the franchise modes and stuff like that. But the younger crowd, they milk them for the my team and the my career. And, there's really no monetization to be had in these franchise modes. Most people play them either, you play them with your buddy, you play them online, or you play them solo offline. And like, you can't really monetize that. Knock on fucking wood, because Lord knows they'll try to find some way to monetize it. But this is a remarkable overhaul, a really remarkable overhaul. So I went through, played the hell out of this game, played like 10 hours of it in that 4-day stretch. Went through and played a season with the 80s Utah. Played with Adrian Dantley and the Jazz. Went into the 90s, played a season with Jordan and Pippen with the Bulls. 2000s, I played a few seasons in the 2000s. Went with the Pistons for a season, and then drafted Carmelo Anthony. Went with the the New Jersey Nets with J Kidd, and then I turned the trade override on, and I went and got Tracy McGrady. He was like my favorite player ever from the 2000, or I guess not ever, but my favorite player from the 2000s era for sure. And just played with fucking the Nets, J Kidd, T Mac. Went up against the David Robinson, Tim Duncan Spurs in the finals, and then the next year went up against Kobe, Shaq, D Fish, Robert Horry, that Lakers team. And just having a blast, man, with the old school courts and the slightly more grainy aesthetic with the visuals and the, you know, even down to like the salary caps in the off season where, you know, in the modern era, you're paying people 45 mil a year for a max contract. And you go to the 90s, 2000s, you're paying people shit. Like, honestly, in the 90s, you're paying people like, what, 14 million for a max contract. And then the 2000s, you're paying people maybe 20 mil, 18 mil for a max contract. And then comparing that to the modern era, 45 mil for a max contract. It's just crazy that they went in and even detailed all that stuff out to have it, you know, representative of the time that you're going to be playing that franchise mode in. And then, you know, even like having the draft picks. So for the 2003, for, you know, the LeBron and Carmelo, D-Wade, that draft class, the Pistons were able to get such a good pick because they traded the Grizzlies for their draft pick. And so in the game, you have the Grizzlies draft pick there. So you go in and now, you know, knowing what we know now, you don't draft fucking Darko Milicic number 2. You go in and pick Melo number 2 after LeBron's picked, or you pick D-Wade, or, you know, if you want to fill that power forward spot, if you know, trade Rasheed Wallace or let him, well, actually Rasheed Wallace isn't in the game. You have to, they have his kind of model or a similar model, and you go in and just type his name in there. But yeah, if you want to let him go and you fill that forward spot with Chris Bosh, and then that's your kind of new 5-man roster with Billups and Rip and Tayshaun and Rasheed and Ben Wallace. If that's like the lineup you want to take there, you take that, but you're able to do it all because it has that understanding and in that built-in detailed trade and all those trades built into the systems to make it to where you can get that very accurate recreation of what took place in 03. It's really, really cool, man. Really freaking cool. I also played a little bit of the Jordan mode, played through maybe 5 or 6 of the Jordan challenges. Fun, similar thing with the visual setup and everything. The actual gameplay of 2K23, it's, you know, it's standard fare. How much can you really iterate on that in a year-to-year process? Usually it's like 2K22 had a pretty big jump just with the flow and movement of the players. It feels a little bit more lifelike, you know, where you're feeling like you can buy separation a little bit better. It feels like Joel Embiid doesn't play exactly the same as your just standard center. It's like, it used to feel like, okay, well, if you have Joel Embiid and then you have, I'm trying to think, Steven Adams, they play very, very similar. It's just Joel Embiid's a better version because his rating's higher. It does feel a little bit more now like Joel Embiid has his own DNA, his own move set that you can pull off. But there still is that thing of template center should behave X way, while template forward should behave Y way. And that's just, it's not natural. Where Joel Embiid, you see him in real life, he's isolating the defender at the top of the key, and, you know, he's able to create his own offense off the dribble, and like that's just not really possible with the way that the characters move still today, which is really, really weird when you're seeing like Jokic and Embiid and these new, even like fucking what's his name, Bobo, you know, like you're seeing this new breed, this new crop of centers in the league, and they're able to kind of dictate the pace of the game and move and operate as if they were, you know, traditionally, like back in the day, they kind of play like a point forward in a lot of ways. And they just don't have that built in correctly yet, in my opinion, where like you can't really size up in that mid-range game with Joel Embiid and pull up over a defender, especially if you're playing on like anything all-star or above on the difficulty. Maybe you're playing on pro or semi-pro or whatever, that you might can pull that stuff off, but I even then I would kind of doubt it, just with the way that it's baked into the game, where if a defender's like on you at all, it just seems like you're pretty much going to miss that shot. And that's just kind of not how the game really feels. But I get with competitive play and shit like that, I could see how it's probably hard to balance all that. But regardless, all of that is to say, I am very, very impressed with the franchise mode. Of course, there's improvements that could be made to the gameplay and all that stuff, but very impressed with the franchise mode. Still got to die. Oh, and I bought a copy of it for the PlayStation 5. I still, I'm going to dive into my career a little bit. I always create a player, and let me kind of explain real quick why people are maybe thinking, why the hell would you buy a copy on the Xbox, or why would you play it on the Xbox, have that stuff, the Jordan Challenge and all that on the Xbox, and then buy a copy on the PS5? Reason being, I play with my buddies on the PS5 every now and then. I'm not an online guy. I hate online play, if I'm being totally honest, but every now and then, get some buddies over, and then, we'll kind of just link up and then play career mode, play the rec stuff together. But I don't really know if you can do like the cross-platform play for 2K. You might be able to, and I'm just not, I'm so out of that ecosystem that I really don't know about any of that shit. So I just bought a copy on the PS5 to be safe, so I can create my guy and all that. But yeah, the free trial bought me in. It totally hooked me. I was totally impressed, and Amazon had it for like $40 on sale for a little Black Friday deal. So I was like, I will absolutely grab this for $40. Happily will pay for those new additions. Happily. So shout out to 2K, man. That's way more work than I ever would have imagined that they would do for franchise mode. All right, next up, let's dive into the Dark Pictures Anthology, Devil in Me. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quickly. Spent way too damn long talking about NBA 2K23, but you guys know I'm a big fan of Supermassive. Love all their games, and played through everything in the Dark Pictures Anthology, Until Dawn, the Quarry, all that shit. And The Devil in Me, kind of the closeout of Season 1 with the Dark Pictures Anthology. And I gotta say, I am impressed with this game, and also kind of aware that it's not as good as the last entry. I think House of Ashes is still the best thing that came out of the Dark Pictures Anthology. I think that The Devil in Me impressed me because it introduced new mechanics that I do believe Supermassive will use to build the foundation for the rest of their games going forward. The Devil in Me is actually like a lot more video gamey, a lot more roots in traditional old school survival horror, with a lot more exploration, a little bit of backtracking, some puzzle solving, some inventory slots, and like even characters with these kind of goofy, quirky abilities that you're like, that don't really matter at all in the game. But I liked having, these characters, being able to move around with them a little bit more, having like some slight platforming elements at times. And there's some jank in it. This, like I said, it feels like the first step before, they really get running. And like you see a lot of clunky animations when they're trying to pull off like the transition animations from when you're running to when you got to duck into a little hole that you got to get through or whatever. The character will just stutter like a motherfucker until it locks into that next animation to do like the crawling animation. When you go from your run to the crouch to the crawl, like there's some serious stuttering in those animation transitions. But I was kind of happy to see that Supermassive, they're not resting on their laurels. They have created something that is fundamentally like just enjoyable. You know what I mean? These games are just a joy to get once a year. You're paying $40 for it or so. And I'm like, dude, I'll pay $40 for this every year to just get a little narrative adventure, make some decisions, get acquainted with some new characters in a horror world. Like, that's really what I am. I'm just on board for that style of shit. And they're so prolific, and I just think they should be proud of themselves, man. I really do. I think they're so ahead of the game in so many respects, where they've found their niche and they found a workflow that they presumably are comfortable with. I imagine it can be difficult to get out those yearly games, especially when you're looking at this year, The Quarry and The Devil in Me. Like, I for sure I could see that being a real struggle, but I just think it's solid that they filled this little niche in the industry of, your kind of telltale style choose your own adventure games, but in the horror space. But it's cool to think of what could be with, maybe diving in a little bit deeper, having a little bit more depth with the inventory slots. Because in this game, it's pretty much like, okay, you found a key, you use the key 2 seconds later, the key's gone, you don't have to think about it ever again. When you're adventuring around and moving your character, you're just getting from one place to the next to get to the next story moment. And that's sort of what the game is. But like I said, it just feels like something's simmering. It feels like Supermassive, they're not too content. And I'm curious what to see. Curious to see what will be created with these new, core gameplay differences. Like what are they going to use these different new features that they created for The Devil in Me? What are they going to use those for going forward? Very interested in seeing that. However, with The Devil in Me, the focus on navigation, exploration, puzzle solving means that in this 6-hour runtime, you're making a lot less choices, and I would say kind of getting less invested in the narrative because of that. Like, I don't feel like I ever really connected with any of these characters. Kind of the base setup here is that you're this new upstart film crew and you got invited to this recreation of H.H. Holmes' mansion, this murder castle, if you will. And of course, that's any fucking weirdo who wants to recreate a serial killer's house. Probably not the person to go and hang out with. Just kind of a good rule of thumb. But you do, of course, and shit goes wrong, of course. And yeah, you got like little relationships going on, like intimate relationships. 2 different groups are, have these little relationships going on. So you're getting a little bit of backstory there. The kind of director of the group, he's this old, bitter, never really had his break style guy, and easy to dislike. He's kind of the character that you just build up that resentment towards as the game goes. And then he has his, of course, you can kind of make slight decisions that'll make him a little bit more likable and give him a slight redemption arc and stuff like that. But same formula. What you choose is going to that the choices you make will decide who lives, who dies, all that. I got out with everyone living except one character because of one stupid ass decision that I made because of those little, what do they even call them? Like the visions. In Until Dawn, they were like the totems. I think they're called something new here, but I had a vision that slightly skewed my perception of what the situation was actually showing me when the decision popped up, and I made a dumb choice, got my character killed because of that damn vision. I'm going to blame it on the damn vision. It's kind of, similar to like the Quarry, where there's really no difficulty in keeping your characters alive. It's all coming down to the decisions that you make and stuff. And there's one moment in the story that I'm very, very surprised they had the balls to go there. I won't get into it because it's later in the game, but I was very, very surprised that they would have allowed you to make a decision in that game later on. It was like legitimately shocking, and really tapped into that essence of having to survive and making real fucking tough choices in effort to survive. And I don't really know how it plays out. I'm sure that I'm sure they wouldn't have really did it, because I could see getting some serious backlash if they really did it. I didn't make the choice to do it sucks having to talk around all this shit, but I want you guys, if you're going to play it, to experience it for yourself. But I would imagine that somehow they skirt around that decision. There was no way I could have made the decision. It was way, way, way too fucked up. Just no chance. So I don't. Something I'm gonna have to look it up on YouTube. Something tells me that they didn't go all the way in with making that decision to sacrifice something else to save yourself. I'll just say that, and I will leave it there. But I was very surprised that they even if they did skirt around it, I was really surprised that they even like opened themselves up to that potential backlash. So yeah, man, it's different for sure. It's the most different of the Dark Pictures games. Without a doubt. It's longer, it's meatier, it's more gameplay, but I would say it's not one of the better stories overall. Scary as shit, full of jump scares. This is probably the second scariest Supermassive game that I've played. It's full of jump scares, man. People have their different opinions on jump scares. Some people find them cheap. I think it works reasonably well here with The Devil in Me. So I enjoyed the game. Let's check where it's at on Metacritic. Okay, so the PS5 version is at a 70. These games never really review well, especially the Dark Pictures anthology games. And I mean, they're not, visually on that Quarry level or anything close to that. Character models don't look really great or honestly not even really good at all in most. There's a couple moments that they look okay in, but for the most part, the character models don't look the best. So I understand why people would have it around that 770 range, but for me, I just love these games, so it's gonna get the fucking Dark Pictures bump. I'd put it at honestly like a 7.6, 7.5. I really love these damn games, man. Okay, and next, gonna really quickly talk about this. Grave Gore. Xbox Game Pass, day one, checked it out, had no knowledge of Gungrave whatsoever before diving into this. Immediately, I'm hooked by the story. It's like a mob anime story with these different mob bosses and shit. It was so cool and presented so wow. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. So well, with such just impeccable cutscenes and production value. And like, I was really, really caught off guard by how damn good these cutscenes were. And so I was like, hell yeah, I'm totally in. And then I got into the gameplay and I was like, oh boy, this is very, very sluggish to be like a character action style of game. Just it was real slow, man. Just this kind of sluggish and slow, and it just kind of felt like a tank character moving around, which you kind of are carrying this big ass coffin, so it'd be kind of weird to have that Bayonetta style speed and flow to combat, I guess. But yeah, it was really slow, and I just couldn't quite get into the combat. I played it for 3 hours though, just to see more of those cutscenes and more of the stories, and the characters are very, very just really interesting to me. So I think I might dive into the anime and check out the anime, because like I'm not a big anime guy because of like I don't really like the way the characters look in anime. Usually they all are typically presented so they look so much younger, and it'll even be like these older characters and these adults in anime, but they just look so damn young, and I don't know what it is about that aesthetic, but it just doesn't really appeal to me. And Gungrave Gore didn't really have any of that. Like it just looked like normal ass people, and I don't know, it was presented really, really well, and I was captivated by that mafia storyline. So I think I might check out the anime to dive deeper into Gungrave Gore. But there's some cool little, gameplay quirks with it, like hitting, they shoot like these rockets at you. You can hit the rockets back at the enemy if you time the like little melee attack at the right time, and you can kind of tether to an enemy, pull yourself to them, or pull them to you, and just cool little fun stuff like that. But it was just a little bit too slow for me to really, really get into, but I loved the story from what I saw of it. All right, and next, let's see. Oh, so I dove into a little bit of God of War Ragnarok, and I just wanted to clean up some of the side quests. I felt like, I ran through the game fairly quickly just to see the story, and I just wanted to dive back in to see what was going on with the side questing, explore a little bit more. And I gotta tell you, man, I played it for about, I don't even know, an hour and 30 minutes or so, and I was just getting hit with these repetitive ass puzzles. Use your elemental bow, and then I'm going to use my damn blades of chaos, and we're gonna get these 3 big circles, and then I'm gonna use my blades of chaos. It's gonna hit one of the circles, then it's gonna transition to the others, and it's gonna catch this damn vine on fire, and that's how we're gonna advance. And it happened one after another, and I'm just like, I really just want to explore. I want to kind of just banter back and forth with these characters. I want to see what's going on in the world after the game. I want to experience the post game content. Like that was all I wanted, you know. And it just I was totally turned off by the puzzles. Totally turned off by the puzzles. I just didn't want to mess with them. They're just so damn boring to me. And it's not even boring. If they were one puzzle every like hour or two, really no problem with that at all, because then they would feel diverse enough. You would have the one with the water and the ice and the axe. Then you would have the one with the elemental, arrows with the circles and the blades of chaos. Like there would be ways, and the cogs and having to freeze the cogs to open certain sections. Like there would have been enough diversity of puzzles there. But with the way that they are just constantly one after another of the same type of puzzle, it's just, I don't know. I had to put it down. I think I might be wrapped up on Ragnarock. I saw the main story, enjoyed the main story, thought it was incredible. I loved the moment-to-moment combat, but I think I'm throwing in the towel. I just don't want to mess with those puzzles anymore at all. Just way too many of them. But so with that, I was like, okay, well, I started playing this around like right after Thanksgiving, in that holiday period. And I was like, I just want some comfort food to dive into, a comfort food world to dive into. So I was like, let me check out this PS5 version of Cyberpunk 2077. And I got to say, I am absolutely fucking stunned by the improvements that were made to Cyberpunk 2077. This game it's a different game. It's a totally different game. When I first played it on the PS4, it was like, of course, one of the worst launch experiences I've ever seen with a game. Played it on the PS5 when I first got my PS5. That would have been February or so of 2021. Still not a great experience overall. I loved it so much just because of the story. But characters, didn't have faces. The game crashed on me fucking 25 times. Just totally bugged the hell out. I dove into this thing, the next gen version on the PS5, and I'm cruising through the world. Of course, it's an open world game. Of course there's popping. Of course there's some frame rate dropping. But by and large, this thing ran so goddamn smoothly. The world, there's so many NPCs just roaming around, and this bustling night city that was not there when I played it in February or when I played it at launch. Not there at all. And you're just looking at these NPCs, and they all kind of have like their own little things. It feels like they're alive and doing their own things, similar to how the Witcher feels, where it's like a living, breathing world that feels like it's kind of existing even if you're not in it. And I didn't play it for long. I played maybe 5-6 hours or so. But I was truly impressed with so many of these improvements and just how much better it ran across the board. And just how densely populated everything is. As I'm cruising around on my damn, cruising around on Jackie's bike and just sort of vibing in Night City. I went and meditated with some monks, did a few missions for some monks, rode a damn roller coaster, fixed up a little roller coaster, rode a roller coaster, and just I created a new character. I initially played as a nomad, and now I created a female version of V. I played as a male first, created a female version of V, and did a corpo. So I feel like, when I want to go back and replay through it again, I'll probably just boot back up the same save that I have right now. I love having like the different decisions that you can make as a corpo opposed to the nomad, and like, that one mission with what's her name, Meredith Stout, where you can like totally kind of have your way as that corpo dialogue is introduced into those interactions, because you just kind of have that one upper hand in those conversations, and then you get the chip, and then really no hassle at all. And then I just love all the different possibilities in that one mission in particular. So just a really, really solid game. And I'm really just impressed. I'm impressed with how much more stable it is in combat. The combat feels great. The melee feels solid. The shooting feels solid. Quite the turnaround. I don't think you can ever forgive CDPR for launching a game in that state. I feel like the biggest regret from that whole process and experience would have to be just launching it on the PS4 and Xbox One in general. Should have been next gen only. Honestly, it probably should have been fucking Stadia and PC only for a little while until they could stable it out and then, get it patched up on the console versions. But yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, man, just a wonderful, wonderful game at this point. A game that when I first played it, definitely when I first played it at launch, but even after playing it, on the PS5 in February of 2021, like, that's not a game I would have recommended to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, that's a game. Well, I should say I would only recommend that to people who are like into Bethesda style games where you're expecting tons of bugs and crashes, and then you're okay with that stuff because you like the depth of the role playing experience. That would be the only crowd that I could have ever recommended Cyberpunk to. At this point, I would recommend that game to anybody. One of the coolest vibes of a game ever. And just CDPR, they're one of the few developers out there who can nail that feeling of cool, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it just feels cool to be surrounded in their world with the way that they design the buildings and the way that they everything, just yeah, man, it's a fucking dope ass game. I really, really am blown away by the improvements to Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, and last but certainly not least, Evil freaking West. Evil West, man, this is something. This is really something. If you were a fan of old school PS2, PS3 era, like linear action games, if you miss the days of the Max Paynes and the Tomb Raiders and the Uncharted's, or if you kind of like that older school feel of God of War, which this actually, it has a lot of the new feel of God of War in it as well, but it feels old school in its nature of not giving you unnecessary bloat, not giving you too many unnecessary RPG elements and crafting elements, and it's just like this, like I said, God of War third person action feel to it, combined with this Red Dead 18th century Western world, and then combining that with the Dark Watch-ish vampire hunter theme. And then you also have like slight sprinkles of your Uncharted's and Indiana Jones in there as you're exploring and solving like very, very just quick and simple puzzles. Get out of your hair. It's just more of anytime you're interacting with a puzzle, it's more of a situation where it's just allowing you to rest your damn fingers, honestly, from the last bombastic ass encounter you had with 400 fucking vampires and a werewolf and a weird blob creature that has a shield that you gotta batter the damn shield 100 times before it breaks, and then you can start doing actual damage to it. It's just, dude, it's so fun. They have like these setups of just in the middle of your battle arena, a big ass tower of spikes that you can bash an enemy up in the air. You'll pop them up in the air, similar to how you do with like your Blades of Chaos in God of War. And then you can spike them like a volleyball spike into this tower of fucking spikes. You impale these enemies, and it is just gory, bloody, nonstop slaughterfest, just drip fed into your veins. It is so damn cool, man. You're constantly cycling between these different weapons. It's a game where every single button on that controller. You're utilizing everything on that bad boy, and it's fun. You don't just find, or at least in my 5 hours so far, I haven't found a method of combat that I prefer the most and just only stick to that. Like, I do everything. I got my damn revolvers where you can hold R2 and just fire out these constant barrage of shots. You switch to your rifle and you're lining up your shots. You get a bow and arrow later on in the game. You got that long range sniper on that bow and arrow. You get a fucking flamethrower and just all these different fun weapons to interact with. And then on top of that, you get this thing called a zapper where you can electrocute enemies from afar, and you tether to the enemy that you electrocute. If you like press L1 and up, you'll tether to them. You press L1 and back, you can tether them to you with like the zip line feature. You bring them to you and you're just constantly punching them over and over with these quick jabs and sending their damn heads flying. And then you get like this, you press L3 and R3 at the same time, and you do this Flash-esque zip around. You're zipping around the battlefield as if you're fucking Flash, and so many abilities where you're Hulk smashing down on the monsters and the enemies around you. And there's not a ton of like overly difficult bosses, but it does have like cool ass monster types that are mini bosses that are constantly being thrown at you, and the enemy variation and the onslaught, the amount of enemies that are getting thrown at you as you progress in the game are increasing more and more. So you're constantly utilizing the different skills that you're learning, and you're upgrading your character throughout the game, and just kind of getting more familiarized with all these different ways that you can take out the enemies in combat. And it's just you never feel safe, because like anytime you get hit, your health dwindles pretty quickly. But on the flip side of that is that if you get enough energy points, you can or actually, let me correct that. If you get enough energy points and you fill it up, you eventually can do like your flash thing like I talked about. But if you kill the enemy with like, this is way too in the weeds, but I'm just like literally fresh off the game, so I'm thinking about all this shit. But like, if you have your energy points up and you are like electrocuting the enemy and tethering to the enemy, and you kill them with the tether, they will drop health. And then so you'll be able to like quickly replenish your character's health, get right back into the flow of battle, and then you also have like a meter that you can fill up as you do more damage and you stay alive longer. This health meter fills back up, and you can press circle and refuel your health with that. And it just, you have like a shotgun that you use to square. You get like a little stick of dynamite that you can throw later in the game, and your weapons are constantly being powered up more and more. And with like it's kind of got like that Order 1886 vibe, which I mentioned in that underrated games video. But this alternate history sort of timeline where you're seeing these different characters from just Abraham Lincoln. You see him really early on in the game in like a little photo, and they just have these different historical figures in the game being represented, and sort of ties to that. But it has that flair and this just insane sort of alternate timeline history setting and story that they're telling you. And it's got like surprisingly solid production value, and it's got a decent cinematic focus. It really does feel kind of like if Sony Santa Monica was told, okay, hey, we're going to cut your budget in half for God of War, but we're going to allow you to be as creative as you could ever possibly want to be. Like, no restrictions on your creativity. And that's really how this feels. It feels like a over-the-top, fun-ass action game experience that has limitations with its budget, for sure. Like, the character models do not look like your Sony first-party games or anything like that. It's not a Rockstar Games production. You'll be talking to NPCs who their damn mouths are literally not moving at all. But when it actually gets into the cinematics, it's shot well. It has a decent level of production value, and the world building is great. The environments are great use of lighting. It's definitely striking visually, and there's moments where you're just kind of roaming around like, holy shit, they put a lot of care and attention to detail into designing these different environments. And just to be really clear, I don't want to oversell this. Like, when I do make the comparisons there to God of War, I want to be very, very clear. Like, this is not on that level of storytelling in any way, shape, or form. You're not going to have that same level of emotional connection to these characters. They're just not even trying to design it that way. These characters are abrasive. They're cussing. They're like, it's nonstop fucking, these characters are definitely rough around the edges. So if you're not into that style of thing, obviously I cuss like a damn sailor, so it doesn't bother me, but I could see maybe some people being like, oh, this is a little bit too much maybe. So I do want to throw that out there, but just overall, it's not on that level of a Sony Santa Monica or Rockstar level story by any stretch of the imagination. But it is cool, having this vampire hunting organization that you belong to, and kind of just, trying to save America, as cliche as that is. And also, like, at a point in the game, you're having to kind of look after your father and make sure that he's okay and shit. So it's got an okay story from what I've played so far. It's nothing that's going to blow you away from what I've played, but the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, that's really, really the hook for me. That's the thing that is totally hooked me in this game. There hasn't been one moment where I'm actually playing the game where I'm even slightly bored of it or ready to get to the next moment. I'm constantly engaged by that moment-to-moment gameplay. It's just so damn fun. Oh Jesus, this thing is sitting at a 70 on Metacritic right now, man. I'm obviously not on that camp at all. Unless this thing takes a serious nosedive towards the end of the game, I'm way hotter than a 70. I right now, I may be a prisoner of the moment, but I'm legit probably at 8.6, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, somewhere in that range. Like, this is, I don't know. I don't want to overblow it, but like, I'm legitimately thinking in my head, is this my game of the year? I fucking love playing this game. I truly adore playing this game. It's so damn fun to me. So I don't know. Maybe it's too old school, I guess, and it's designed for certain people. Maybe people don't like that linear focused approach anymore, but I don't know. I appreciate not having all that damn bloat. I'm cool with, give me a solid narrative that combined with a solid ass gameplay loop, even if it's only a 10-hour, 8-hour sort of game. I will happily pay for that shit. That A-okay with me. This has been one hell of a game so far, so I'm eager to finish it up and see how, see if it still holds up throughout the rest of the 4 hours or whatever I have left with the game. But that's going to be it for me on this episode. I already know this shit's going to be brutal to edit together because I ramble like a motherfucker, but hey, that's the fun of this whole thing. Like I said, let me know down in the comments below what you have been diving into, what you've been playing, what you've been checking out. Shoot the breeze with me in the comments below, and a lot of good stuff coming towards the end of the year. So I appreciate you all for tuning in, watching these episodes, listening to my ramblings, and yeah, as always, shoot the breeze with me. Appreciate you guys. See you soon. Goodbye.